Periods. When we're younger, we want them, and when we actually have them, we regret ever wanting them. Hey guys, it's Grace. So today I'm going to be doing a video on periods. Haha, it's a very interesting topic. So I was actually inspired by Beautylicious Insider here on YouTube, who has done a few of these kinds of videos to talk about periods in general, my experience with periods, and basically the different ways to control the flow. Sorry for like all the makeup on here, but tomorrow I'm planning on filming a haul video because I have some stuff that I got this weekend with my mom, and that's just kind of there because I'm waiting for a few things that are supposed to be coming in the mail. So that's why that's there. I'm going to start off talking about my experience with getting my period. So the first time that I got my period was in 6th grade in reading class, and I went to go to the bathroom. I had no idea. Of course my mom had like explained to me what periods were before and stuff like that, but I went into the bathroom and I was like, oh, there's stuff that looks like poop in my pants, but it's definitely not poop. So I did the typical thing that everyone does. You sometimes, even when you already know that you have your period, stuffed, you know, the toilet paper in my pants and went back into class and said way too loudly to my friends that I thought I had just gotten my period, and I'm pretty sure every single person in that class, including the teacher, heard me say that. But you know, you're 6th grade, like you're so excited and gung-ho to be getting your periods. I remember being younger and like really severely wanting my period because I think it's kind of like a rite of passage thing that happens for young women. But don't be afraid of it when it happens. It's not that bad. It's not that embarrassing. Everyone gets their period. All women get their period, so they've been where you are. If you need to go to the nurse, feel free to go to the nurse. If you need to talk to your teacher, if it's a female, then feel free to do that. Don't be afraid to go to an adult and get pads and get something so that you feel a little bit more comfortable if it happens in school, because I know that was definitely a fear of mine, and it ended up coming true, but it was fine. I had my period in 6th grade, and like the first year for when you have your period, it's kind of irregular. Don't expect to really know when you're going to get your period. Like, you get it every month, obviously, and sometimes you skip months, so don't be afraid of that happening either. Some girls skip months, some girls go every month. It depends on who you are, it depends on your body shape, it depends on your hormones, it depends on your genetics, all that kind of stuff really contributes to how you start out in the beginning. But usually it's not really that regular until like past the first year, almost into the second year of you having your period. So went through the first year, went through the second year, pretty normal period, didn't have that bad of cramps. Then I think it was around 8th grade, I started getting horrible cramps. Probably should have expected it because my mom had the same exact situation when she was younger. Same thing on my dad's side, so I think it is partly genetic whether or not you end up having horrible cramps, because it really depends on the person. Like, I know people who have no problem and they just, you know, have their flow and there's nothing else attached to it. But for me, it was like a horror show every single time I got my period. It was so bad to the point that I couldn't get up in the mornings when I had it. Like, I had to stay in bed and I would like roll back and forth on my bed to try to get into a comfortable position and kind of like work through the pain. And I would do that until my Advil finally kicked in. Sometimes I would puke too. Depending on how bad the pain was, really determined whether or not I puked that day. So my case is probably one of the worst cases that you could have, so don't be afraid of that when you're first getting your period. Also, like, it didn't happen to me the first 2 years. It happened to me like from my 2nd year into my 3rd year. So like, it's not like, oh my god, you get your period your first day and you're like, bam, cramps, I'm gonna puke everywhere, that kind of stuff. It's more of when you're starting to get into a little bit of regular flow. What happened was I ended up going on birth control. So I feel like birth control kind of had this like almost bad rep because people don't understand that there's other reasons for people going on birth control than just because like they're having sex and they don't want to have children. So that's definitely not the reason that I am on birth control. You can definitely not be sexually active and still have a need to be on birth control. So I actually did it because one of my other friends who also has had horrible cramps ended up going to her doctor, and her doctor recommended that she go on birth control. So you definitely have to go to your doctor. It's not one of those things that you can just be like, hey, I'm gonna go on birth control because I think it's going to help my period cramps. Like, no, you have to go to your doctor. It has to be kind of like a formal checkup thing, and you kind of tell them why like you need to be on birth control, and then they'll recommend the brand that is best for you, because sometimes different brands get funky with different people, especially if you're taking additional medication on top of that. So that whole thing is something that you need to have a conversation with your doctor with, and I would suggest, like, I have a female doctor, so it wasn't really that awkward for me, but if you have a male doctor, I would suggest like trying to get it set up with a female doctor if you feel uncomfortable with that kind of stuff. And I also have a friend who is not able to take birth control because it's some weird thing, like her and her mom have like weird blood clot situations, so when they take birth control, like if they tried to, the blood clots might increase and something, I don't know. It's something in their genetics, so they, like, she can't take birth control for cramps or for any other reason anyway. So it's always good to check with your doctor before you do anything, just to make sure that you're not going to be harmed physically from the medicine. I started birth control, and not only did that reduce my cramps, it didn't completely make them go away because they were so awful in the beginning, but it did reduce them, and I knew, my doctor told me that it was not guaranteed that they were going to be able to go away completely. It did that. It also made my period more regular, so now I have it down to where I know exactly what day my period will be on, and I can plan and I can take Advil the night beforehand, so that when I get up in the morning, even though the cramps aren't as bad, like I still need to take Advil in order to lessen the pain, so I can take that Advil in advance and know that I'll be fine throughout the day and I won't have to miss any school. So now I guess I will go into tampons versus pads. When I first started out, I kind of had a slight fear of tampons just because, I don't know, I just didn't want to, you know, stick something up there. I feel like it's the weirdest part of having periods, so that kind of freaked me out, but because of the heaviness of my flow, I ended up having to use them later in my period experience anyway. So I would definitely recommend with the first year to the first 2 years, definitely just wearing pads if your flow is relatively light. And usually in your first to second year of having your period, your flow is relatively light. Another tip is just always have stuff on you, especially if you don't know when your period's going to hit you. Not only that, but it also helps with like your other friends and stuff like that. So if they get their period, then, you know, you can kind of like give them some supplies and stuff like that and help them out. So I would always have period supplies in your backpack or your locker, and also in your purse if you carry a purse around with you. Some positives of pads are obviously that they soak up a lot and they're not as frightening or as invasive, I feel like, as tampons. And they're definitely very good for your first year. They're pretty convenient. A downside to them is that you can't swim in them. So that's one of the positive things about tampons, is that they stop the flow earlier. It's not as messy. They are a little bit cleanlier, I guess you could say. And they also allow you to swim in them. So that may not seem like a huge deal if you don't live somewhere that's relatively warm, or if you don't really like swimming in summer or stuff like that. But definitely if you ever go to the beach or go to a water park with friends or with a school group and you end up having your period, you really don't want to get what my friends and I used to call bubble butt. So basically what bubble butt is these that are put into a pad to make it as absorbent as it possibly can be. They kind of explode when they, and I say that figuratively because they don't actually like explode, but they kind of explode when they suck up too much moisture. So if you're going to a water park or something like that and you just wear a pad and you don't have a tampon on, basically what happens is if you get your butt wet at all, the pad kind of blows up like a balloon and makes you look basically like you're wearing a diaper. You don't really want that, and especially if you're wearing like a bikini and you're not wearing shorts on top of that, which I would always recommend if you're wearing a pad going to a water park, or even if you're not wearing a pad going to a water park with your period, avoid white bathing suits and avoid wearing bikini bottoms. Try to wear like shorts, boy shorts, something like that, because that can quickly turn into a very, very awkward situation. I feel like that's a positive of tampons. You don't have to change them as much. You don't have to think about them as much. I think they tend to be a little bit less absorbent, just in my experience. But I mean, each thing kind of comes with a good thing and a bad thing about it. One thing that I think prevents a lot of people from wearing tampons is the whole like toxic shock syndrome thing, where people are like, oh my god, if I wear a tampon and I leave it in for too long, like I'm totally gonna die, I'm gonna get toxic shock syndrome. So I feel like that's one of those things that is a little bit overrated and over exaggerated, over dramatized, something like that, because really that only happens if you leave it in for like an entire day or something like that, or a very, very long period of time. Me, for example, so sometimes I will leave a tampon in. Really depends on what day I am in my period, whether or not I have to change it halfway through the school day, but sometimes I leave it in for the whole school day. So that's 6 hours, and then I change it when I get home, and then I go to dance, which is probably another 4 or 5 hours before I change it again when I get home again. So it's not like if you leave it in for like 8 hours, like that's pretty much like the amount of time that you really want to leave it in for. Wearing tampons overnight are fine. You don't have to worry about that. It's actually, that's another positive of tampons, is that when you go to sleep, you don't get like the gross, weird period thing that happens to you when you lay down. So like, I know it's gonna sound disgusting, but I have to describe this to you. So when you lay down and you have your period and you're just wearing a pad, what happens is gravity pulls the blood down, so it doesn't really absorb into the pad as well as it normally would, and you could end up having bloody underwear and bloody sheets from sleeping in one night with your period. Tampons, on the other hand, stop the flow before it gets out of your body, so gravity doesn't really make that much of a difference in that, so they're a little bit better for when you sleep, and it's fine to leave them in when you're sleeping, as long as you don't sleep for like 12 hours. Who sleeps for 12 hours, especially when it's on a school day? Don't be afraid of them. Don't be afraid to try them. It's kind of one of those things that you have to learn hands-on, even though that sounds really gross. You kind of have to learn it for yourself, and you have to figure out what is right for your body. So some people might like pads more and some people might like tampons more, but if you try both of them out, then at least you know you gave it a chance. So for those of you who don't know, and I was a very, very naive person in relation to this, and I still think I am very, very naive about this, but I think it's nice to know. There are these things called menstrual cups. So the one that I have is called the Diva Cup, and I know there's like the soft cup, and there's like sponge things that you can use and other sorts of things that you can use. If you Google it on if you Google anything relating to menstrual cups or other ways to soak up the blood, then there will be a bazillion things that will pop up on the internet. So if you really want to go out there and explore that, then just type it into Google, because actually Google is definitely more knowledgeable about that kind of stuff than I am. Basically what the Diva Cup is it's like this plasticky, almost like, it's like nylon. I don't know what kind of material it is, but it's like this big, and it's literally a cup, and I've definitely had struggles with it, just adjusting to the feeling of it and the weirdness of having a cup up there and putting it in and being afraid of it like going up and being stuck in there, because that has happened to people before, but it's mostly because they put it in incorrectly. So again, you kind of have to experiment with things and try them out and see how they fit your body type, and sometimes they're not going to work. So I'm still experimenting with that. I have to try to find a time when I have my period that I'm not completely stressed out, so that I can like relax and figure it out. So I would suggest doing that if you're trying anything of like a menstrual cup that isn't a tampon or a pad. Try to do it when you're a little bit more relaxed and not stressing out about something. I would definitely do research, do a lot of research before actually picking out anything like that. So if you guys have any other questions or advice for other people who are just starting their period, or people who have had their period for a while, please leave them down below. I would love to hear your feedback, and I would also love to have some advice of my own, because obviously I am not a doctor. I do not know all, and this is just my experience with it. So people may have other experiences, and they may be a lot more experienced than I am in this situation. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please give it a like and subscribe down below if you haven't already. So my previous video will be on this side. I swear it's this side. In my last video I did it wrong. I apologize. And then my previous vlog will be on this side. I'm going to try to start vlogging a little bit more. Would you guys like to have vlogs on this channel, or would you like to see them on another channel? Because I feel like, I don't know, I feel like having two channels is just too much for me to handle, so I'd rather just upload the vlogs here. So comment down below what you would think on that. But I hope you had a really great day. I hope this video helped you out in some way, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!